Good afternoon, Seattle. Welcome back to Season 9 of Le Freres Heureux. We're here with a new season. I am your host, Wario, and I'm here with my co-host...
Waluigi.
Wah.
Wah.
If you don't get that reference, you need to watch our previous bonus episode.
Yeah.
Which we've definitely not just recorded.
No, of course not. We recorded them at separate times.
My name is Fraser.
And my name is Ewan.
And we're here to talk about Frasier.
Yep.
As we are every week.
As always.
Yep. We are getting a fair way through it. We are just ticking down the seasons until season 11 and the end of the show. 33
marks the three-quarter mark.
Three-quarter mark, you're right.
3/4, that's episode 33 out of 44 we're on today. So
we're close.
We are.
The downloads, the listens keep coming in.
Yeah.
Exponentially as the months go on.
We hit 7,500.
Yes,
last
which
week,
is quite a milestone.
We're
aiming for that 10,000 before the end of the run.
Yeah, 10,000 would be nice before we finish Frasier.
That's a good round number.
Yeah.
So, yes, thank you as always to all of you lovely listeners who are tuning in week after week and telling your friends and getting new people involved in the wonderful world of Frasier.
Yes.
It's always good to have not only fans of us, but to have new people introduced to the show as well.
Of course.
Because, quite honestly, it is the best show of all time.
Mm-hmm. My going on and on about having a podcast, because I'm one of those losers in my mid-20s who has a podcast. I have convinced a couple of my friends to watch Frasier. So at the end of the day, it's been all worth it.
It's been all worth it. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So this disc marks a, in my opinion, significant improvement over the sort of average of season 8.
I think so.
Peeking ahead at some of the episodes to come, I think season 9 is a pretty significant improvement actually over season 8 on the whole. We'll see how we get on throughout, giving our rankings and our 2 cents on each of the episodes.
Of course.
Now, I'm going to let you take the lead this week.
Yes.
Because I've been a lazy boy who, although having watched the episodes and reminded myself and given the scores, I have not written up many notes.
Cool.
So I don't want to be left wordless or getting things wrong or mucking about. So I will let you take charge when it comes to the episodes, and I will simply chime in with here and there with my little words.
Perfect. So kicking off, as we always do with the start of the season, we had a bit of a cliffhanger at the end of season 8.
We did.
The Cranes have gone Caribbean.
They have.
They're in Belize, and Frasier, along with his new girlfriend Claire, seemed to be having a great time. Well, kind of having a great time. It was a bit up and down. But seemed to be settling in and feeling very happy now that they've slept together, basically. Suddenly has a dream during the night and realizes that he might have feelings for his friend Lana instead.
Also Claire's friend.
Also Claire's friend. Yes, they are the mutual friend that they met through, Lana. So he, of course, is tortured by this for a long time on the journey back and winds up breaking up with Claire. Mm-hmm. And then pretty much immediately going to make a move on Lana. Yeah. Which isn't...
Classic Frasier.
That is classic Frasier.
It's exactly like something he would do.
Yeah. He goes to the baggage claim, the lost luggage place at the airport because his bags have still been lost from the flight, and bumps into someone who listens to his show, a man called Bob.
Yep.
And he explains that, Bob explains, I'm in a bit of a predicament, you see. I'm not sure if I'm in love with my ex or if I'm in love with this new woman in my life who's supposedly perfect for me. And Bob decides that he wants to get back together with his ex, so Frasier, presumably because of that,
it kind of reaffirms his decision.
I guess,
yeah.
Decides that that's, a good enough reason to also want to break up with his current girlfriend and go off with someone else, even though everyone else loves Claire.
By this point, everyone loves Claire. Even Daphne, who wasn't sure, she was kind of on the fence about Claire. She felt a bit threatened because Claire was lovely. She got on great with Martin. And so she felt a bit threatened and wasn't convinced that she was right for him. But then Claire turns out to be lovely to Daphne as well.
Yeah.
And thought they could end up being close, like sisters and everything. So
because they both only had brothers.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a shame.
I know, it is.
That's unfortunately the last we see of Claire, who, was a great
Patricia Clarkson. Love Patricia Clarkson.
Was
I think
wonderful
she's
and
amazing. Even the role of Claire is just great, and sad we see so little of her, unfortunately.
But there we go. So Frasier goes to Lana's house because it is Kirby's graduation party, and that is when he finds out that Bob, who he met at the baggage claim, is in fact Lana's ex-husband Bob, Kirby's father. And he has just inadvertently convinced him to go and confess his feelings to Lana as well, on the same day that he was planning on doing it himself. And that goes about as well as you would expect.
Yeah. Well, that's, before you go on, that's about the cliffhanger. This is a two-parter.
It's a two-parter.
And that's the cliffhanger, which we should have noted the sort of vignette around the episode as well.
That's true. We've got
is Frasier in a car with Lilith and Diane, going somewhere, and them sort of not teasing but questioning his choices, and why he doesn't want to just be happy, why he keeps doing these things to himself and making these decisions. And that kind of vignettes around the episode.
That's, the opening of the first part. And I think it's a good little hook opening.
It is.
Because this is the first time we see Lilith and Diane actually together. I mean, Diane appeared very, very briefly in Adventures in Paradise as a little
sort of guest,
a little cameo appearance, I guess.
Cameo, yeah.
Which Lilith had also appeared in, but they're not on screen together. They probably weren't even on set at the same time. I suppose they might have been. But this is the first time we've seen them together properly since Cheers, and they've actually interacted with each other. Yeah. So to then open a season with that, and then immediately cut to 3 weeks earlier, you're then like, well, what's going on with this? Why are they in a car together? Why are they on a road trip? Why is Frasier on a road trip with two of the three of his ex-wives?
Yeah.
Or kind of ex-wives.
Sort of ex-wives, I suppose. Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much the first episode there. We'll do it in two. I mean, I'm happy ranking them together. We can rank them separately. I'm probably going to give them the same rank.
I'd rank them just in one, to be honest. I think, we've kind of found that. Yeah, so if the episode's like part 1 and part 2, we'll do them together. Yeah. If it's 2 separate episodes tied together,
that makes sense.
We'll do them as separate ones, I think.
Cool, that's fine. We'll carry on then.
Yeah, crack on.
Yeah, so back to Kirby's graduation party. Bob showed up. Lana's pretty distraught that Bob showed up. And
she's less than thrilled.
Frasier goes in and comforts her, and she says something along the lines of, like, I need you to be honest with me because you're the only man I can trust. And Frasier then kind of has to say, like, well, you wouldn't be this upset. He needs to be honest with her and say you wouldn't be this upset if there wasn't a chance that you would want to be back with him.
Yeah.
We did see from Lana at the end of the last season when it was her birthday. Well, her birthday when Bob decided to go off and get married
remarried.
Whatever.
Kathy, I think her name is.
That she's clearly distraught. Presumably because she misses him. I mean, they were married, must have been married for quite a long time. They had at least one child, if not two.
They've got two. I think Kirby's got a sister, yeah.
Yeah, depending on what it's...
But I mean, if Kirby's... Even if Kirby's the eldest, he's leaving high school, so he'd be, 18?
Yeah. Yeah, so Frasier has to be honest and say, well, no, you should be with him. I'm going to go back to being single because I've made a cock up of this, as always.
Yep.
And that's when he decides to leave. I do actually really like the scene when he goes back and explains all of this to Martin and Niles and Daphne.
Yeah, he goes and tells them and just kind of recaps what we've just seen, and they're all like, turn on him.
there's a lid for every pot, and there's plenty more fish in the sea, and good things come to those who wait.
Yeah.
And then Frasier snaps at them and says, like, can you just be be genuine with me and not just say,
cut the platitudes.
like, I've heard all these platitudes before. And Martin says, like, it's not my fault that we can't make happy every time. You can't make it work with a woman.
Very blunt, but I mean,
it's absolutely true. I mean, God, how many times must they have had that conversation?
Yeah. Think about all the times on screen. You know, we've had pretty much every other episode of the show. Mm-hmm. If we're being generous, let's say every 3 episodes of the show is him with a woman or trying to get with a woman, that it doesn't work out. So think about reading between the lines and between the episodes.
Yeah. Even on screen, probably about 100 times, you know?
You know, in the past 8 years, that must be...
something.
Yeah, I can't even think. I can't do the math.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So he's absolutely right.
And he decides to go off and spend some time by himself and kind of assess his situation and try and understand why he is such a loser. And that's when he starts imagining his ex-wives as... I mean, I kind of understand why he would be picturing Lilith, because Lilith also being a psychiatrist and having a really, like, because they were married for so long. I mean, Lilith must have, at this point, must be his most significant relationship. Mm-hmm. You know, I can understand why he would picture her, but then to also picture Diane and Nanette, his first wife, who we're yet to see on screen in this show. We do see her again later on.
We do see her. An excellent guest appearance as well. We do,
in season 11. And I suppose she did appear in Cheers, in an episode of Cheers.
That's true. Wasn't it Emma Thompson that played her?
It was Emma Thompson that played her in Cheers. So, and then they go to the cabin, which is the same cabin that was used for Mamma Mia. Not the film Mamma Mia, the episode of Mamma Mia.
Do they confirm it's the same cabin?
They don't, but it's the same set. And it makes sense because it's like the one that the family rented.
It's their family yeah, that's true.
It makes sense that it would be the same one. So he goes there and he kind of has this little session where he's sitting and talking with them and they're kind of going over like, why can I make it work? Why can't I make it work with you and whatever? And it's revealed that, well, they talk about they all left him. So maybe it's like this like fear of abandonment. Mm-hmm. And then his mother shows up.
Played again by...
Rita Wilson.
Thank you. Who played
Mia.
Mia in Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia.
I told you, I didn't have any notes today.
No. Yes, Rita Wilson, who played Mia in Mamma Mia. And I really like the fact that you can tell she's playing a different character.
She's so good in this.
She's not just like playing the Hester in the same way that she played Mia.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that she came back at all for it, to be honest.
I think
like it really works.
Yeah, it does. But it's a very distinct personality. I think it works really well, actually.
Yeah. So then we've got that, and they continue discussing it, and they're sort of arguing amongst themselves. And Frasier goes to leave, and when he opens the door, there's a
tirade.
Crowd. Yeah, a tirade, yeah. a massive crowd of women barging at the front door of all the women that he's...
and a good number of them guest stars. Reoccurring.
I was interested if how many of them you could name. I've got a list of them here.
Have you got all of them?
I've got all of them.
No,
well, there are 9 that are like obvious, at least. There may well have been more that aren't really visible on camera.
They're all from the more recent seasons. I think. I can't remember how far back it goes.
Oh, they pretty much go right the way through.
Do they?
Yeah.
I know Regan's definitely there.
Yep.
Because she's in the towel.
Gigi Rice is back as
Not
Regan.
that I'm saying that's what I noticed.
No,
but that's it's significant because that's how she was introduced in the show, so you notice that. Who else would be there? Tia Leone?
No.
Duke's daughter? No. Can't remember her name.
Marie.
I don't know. I don't recognize a lot of them because a lot of them have aged since they were on the show, and the shot is literally like a second long.
So yeah, I am being a bit cruel here asking you
without pausing and looking.
You would need to.
Don't think I'd recognize a lot of them. Tell me.
You've got Shannon Tweed as Honey Snow.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So going pretty far back. Claire Stansfield as Christina Harper from Can't Buy Me Love. You've got Lisa Darr, who played Laura in Four for the Seesaw, opposite Megan Mullally. Claire Yarlett, who played Vicky in Life of the Party, who was the one that Frasier and Niles were kind of arguing over.
Yep.
Lisa Waltz, who was Trisha in Party Party, the one that Frasier kept missing, and then she turned out to be a Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, yeah.
Cynthia LaMontagne as Annie from the Ski Lodge.
Oh, yeah.
Lindsay Frost, who was Samantha Pierce from My Fair Frasier.
I should have known Samantha. I knew she was
Closure.
there. I should have known that.
And Tushka Bergen, who was Miranda in The Bad Son, which is the most recent one, start season 8. The one that runs the retirement home.
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
So there you go. That's them. That's the 9. That's the 9 that are visible. There may well have been more that kind of
I don't know.
You can't really see.
Yeah.
Because like you say, it's a very
It's
brief shot.
For a 2-second scene,
Mm-hmm.
I'm impressed they managed to get so many former guest stars. That's impressive.
Yeah, there you go. So we've got this, and they continue talking about like, why is it that Frasier is so unable to make it work? And in the end, the conclusion that they come to is because Lilith left him, Diane left him, Nanette left him, lots of women that he winds up getting involved with.
I love the line where it's like,
Oh.
his mother left him too. It's like, oh, well, you left him. She's the one explaining it. It's like, oh, well, you left him too. It's like, oh, in case you didn't notice, I died. And it's just the pure sark.
And then he says something else.
She
says something about psychiatry, and Lilith corrects her, and she says like, oh, well, I'm sorry, I've been too busy for the past 20 years being dead. Yeah. And Nanette says, that's her excuse for everything. Yeah. The actress playing Nanette is really funny.
She's great, They all are, actually. It's a really great role.
It is, yeah.
Not role. Yeah, sort of. They're playing slightly fictionalized versions of the characters that they played.
Yeah.
And I really love how they all interact with each other. Mm-hmm. So yeah, individual roles.
Yeah, I like that it lends to jokes where it's like they're not just interacting as if they would in real life, especially with the dialogue. There's jokes about like Diane tells a story about this like romantic evening that they had, and then Lilith goes, wait a minute, wasn't that me?
Yeah.
And then you realize that Frasier's kind of misremembering and
wrong, yeah.
They say something about, Nanette's really annoying, but she must have been great in the sack. And then Nanette says, actually, I make a lot of distracting noises. Which I think is really funny. I love the way she says it.
It is. It's a lot of great lines.
Yeah, and like overall, yeah, you get that. So the problem is that all of the women in Frasier's life wind up leaving him. Mm-hmm. So he's actively sabotaging his relationships so that he can't get to the point where they leave and he feels rejected. He needs to screw it up first on purpose so that he doesn't feel like the loser.
I'm alone because I'm afraid of being alone.
It explains a lot.
It does.
It explains
to
so
be fair.
much.
And it's one of those things that it's kind of, we spoke in, was it just the last disc? We spoke about sort of unseen things in the show, and how much more it kind of lends to the intrigue and the fan speculation and things like that, which I really quite like. So stuff like this, it doesn't. I would argue that it doesn't necessarily need to be explored, like sort of the reasons behind Frasier's, womanizing and lack of womanizing, and but at the same time, this episode proves that when they do try and explain things, and they do have a good reason for explaining things, it can be done pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's a good opening to the season. It's a shame that they kind of dismiss everything that happened in the previous season with Claire and Lana.
Yeah, it gets wrapped up very quickly, and they kind of act like at the end of the last season, it's like Frasier has to make a decision between the two women, and then within an episode and a half, he's broken up with one of them and then just given up on the other.
Yeah,
and is pretty much back to his usual self. I mean, yeah, he goes and explores why is he doing all of these things, but doesn't really change much.
No.
It's kind of like when he started going to therapy with Dr. Tewksbury. He makes one or two references saying like, oh, well, I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be a better dad. I'm trying to pay more attention to my relationships. And then
I was actually about to say like the whole addressing of Frasier's of Frasier's addressing of his issues in the previous season
Yeah.
could have lent to a lot in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even the inclusion of Dr. Tewksbury.
Yeah.
There was definitely a place for him in this episode. Giving advice to Frasier on what happened and things like that. I don't hate that they went down the route of him imagining his former lovers.
No.
But there was definitely a different angle they could have taken or merged with, I suppose, to kind of tie off that arc from the previous season as well, that they didn't really. So like you say, the self-improvement, he's not really shown to improve all that much.
Yeah, he doesn't really do much.
But other than that, it's a good episode.
Yeah.
It's a good start.
I enjoy it. So what would you rank it? Cups wise?
I gave both episodes, the single long episode, I give it a 4.
Give it a 4.
I give it a 4.
It's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I'd give it a 3.
Okay.
Which is going to be a bit of a trend, unfortunately, for this disc, I think. But yeah, I think it's like, I think the first episode really isn't great. The second episode definitely bumps it up. I think the conversation that he's having with the ex-wives, you get Lilith and Diane back, both, plus this is the only time that we really see Rita Wilson as Hester. It's the only time we really see Hester at all.
True.
Bar one episode of Cheers.
Yeah.
And that's really good. But it, for me, it just kind of balances out. Like, I don't think it really does enough to bring up the kind of rubbish parts of the first half, and it kind of just balances out in the middle.
I disagree, to be honest. I think I like the first half. I like that it's kind of slowly bringing down the end of the last season. Not bringing down as in, like, score-wise, bringing down just, like, sort of easing you into this new season. I don't like that we don't get more of Gene Smart or Patricia Clarkson, or even Brian Klugman as Kirby. Although we do get
more of him
Kirby
later on.
I don't like that that's their plot kind of over with, and especially, like you said, so quickly they kind of tie it off in an episode and a half. But at the same time, I like the first half of the episode. I think it is pretty good. It's really funny when they're still in Belize. Martin's talking about his lobster hypnotizing.
Yeah.
Niles has got his Island Niles
Niles.
nudie beach thing going on. He doesn't want to give up the naked life, so he goes to Roz and she recommends him a nude beach that actually isn't a nude beach.
Yes. Island Niles is quite funny.
It's very good. And actually Kirby as well in this episode he's got one of my favourite lines and interactions with Roz when they go to the graduation party. Roz tags along as well, and Kirby sort of comes over to her and says, like, "Oh, you were the prize that I had my eyes on the whole time." And he shows her some pictures from is it from the graduation or from the dinner?
From prom, I think.
Or from prom. Oh yeah, because she went obviously with the prom. Yeah, so that night. And he's shown through them, and it's like, yeah, I had them touched up a bit. You're smiling in these ones. And then she says, "I noticed that you have your hand on my ass." And then he says, "Oh, where?" And kind of looks into the photos and then steps back and he's like, "Oh, right, you mean now?"
Do you not like it?
Yeah. I just love that little interaction. I think I was thinking about it, right? And it is weird, right? He's only 18. But Roz and Kirby, I think, could have made a really good pairing in the show if he was a bit older to avoid the age weirdness.
They are very, very funny bouncing off of each other.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that we couldn't see more of that. But it would absolutely not have worked.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit weird. No, I'm glad we get a couple more episodes with him this season. I'm sad that we only get a couple episodes this season, but yeah, he's great. He's definitely my highlight of this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the second half as well, with all the flashback, well, not flashbacks, the hallucinations, imaginings of his exes and all. It's very well done. It's very funny. All the interactions with the guest stars, it's great. So Yeah, I'm sad you only give it a 3. I would have thought it'd be
it's
worthy
just,
of slightly
it kind
higher.
of sits in the middle. I always feel a little bit disappointed when I watch it because like I so love the last bit, kind of last half of the second episode, and I just wish we had more of it.
Yeah, that's true.
But at the same time, we obviously couldn't. I didn't want to rush to that because I feel like the first 3/4 of the 2-parter is like the first episode and a half is rushed enough, really, in like getting rid of Claire, getting rid of Lana, and rounding that all off. I feel like that's rushed enough. It definitely would have suffered if they tried to cram in more of Lilith and Diana and whatnot.
Yeah, the little teases when they're in the car and sort of, I think that works well enough to keep you interested in it. But well, there you go.
Yeah,
the opening of season 9. I still think it's one of the strong. I maintain that it's one of the stronger openings.
Yeah, I do think it's quite a strong opening.
No guest stars. Well, no. There's plenty of guest stars. No
plenty
guest
of guest
callers.
stars, but no guest callers, no guest stars that we've not already mentioned.
No.
There is one that I think is quite funny. So we see Kirby's girlfriend.
Yes, she appears.
She appears and
Crash's graduation.
They have a bit of an argument because Roz is the other lady, and it's a whole thing. She's old enough to be your mother.
Damn, baby, that's cold.
Yeah. Who is played by Morgan Nagler, who is not a particularly well-known actress, but I checked her out on IMDb, and I thought it was quite funny that she's in, the film Evolution.
I love Evolution.
With David Duchovny.
Yeah.
There's a scene, and I can't really remember it because it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I remember it vaguely.
Oh, I know the whole film back and forward, man.
She's in a changing room and she's shoplifting.
Is that her?
And like one of the alien creatures,
they're hunting the aliens.
Oh, he comes in with a shotgun or
in
something
the shopping cart in the shopping mall. Sorry,
yeah.
And she's in one of the. Everyone else evacuates, but she's in the changing room. And when she opens the changing room door, she gets abducted like a pterodactyl kind of thing.
Yeah,
and it like flies through the store, and they're all standing. They stand up on like one of the carts in the middle, and Orlando Jones' character starts singing to try and attract the bird.
Yeah.
And then David Duchovny tries to catch the girl who's being carried away by the pterodactyl thing.
Yeah.
Ooh, tuki.
Evolution's a great film.
I love that.
It has been so long since I've seen it.
We need to rewatch that.
Yeah, we should. Is it a horror? Is it enough of a horror movie? Can we do that for? We can, as a stretch, we can do that for.
Ape things at the end.
Oh, the ape things are pretty scary.
They're pretty creepy.
They are. They really look like the things from Creepshow. Anyway,
right, that's unrelated.
Totally off topic. Yeah, so Morgan Nagler that plays Kirby's girlfriend.
I didn't know that.
She's credited as like changing room girl.
That's
movie Evolution.
About right.
Yeah.
Cool.
I thought you would appreciate that.
I do. Actually, that's it's good to know.
So there you go. Right, move on. Next episode. First temptation of Daphne.
Yes.
So Daphne and Niles they're like properly into the swing of their relationship, and this is the first, I guess. Well, it's not really the first Daphne Niles relationship episode. It's the first one that's not they're starting their relationship and like, oh, now that they're together. This is the first one where it's just kind of about them as a couple.
Yeah,
they're established.
I like that.
So Daphne, while getting a recipe out of Niles's briefcase, accidentally gets a look at one of his patient's files and finds out that she is in love with him, or supposedly in love with him. As Niles explains, it is transference, where she's just feeling like that because he's a therapist and an authority figure and whatever. But Daphne becomes pretty obsessed.
Yeah.
And of course, Niles has to be as reassuring as possible and saying, like, I can't tell you anything and I can't let you find out any more about this woman, but like, you need to know that it's totally harmless and there's nothing funny going on, but Daphne is of course concerned.
I mean, I don't know how I would react in that situation, to be honest, but if you're willing to, you kind of have to make the decision whether you're willing to trust your partner or not anyway in a relationship.
Yeah.
The fact that he is a psychiatrist and deals with patients, and that is a well-known thing, transference is a well-known thing within psychiatric care. Like, you surely you would have made the decision to trust your partner before then.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me.
Maybe.
But
Maybe. It is because they do mention it in the Maris counselor. They talk about transference. They explain
Niles
kind of what transference is, because Maris is having the affair with their therapist while they're going Shankman, while they're going through their kind of getting towards their divorce while they're separated. And Niles says, like, well, maybe it's just transference, and Maris is just feeling this way because he's a therapist and whatever. And he says, like, that it has happened to him before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So we think, maybe that's what it is. But she gets gradually more and more obsessed, I guess, is probably the best word for it.
We get a little cameo. This is one of a few instances in the show where we get a cameo from a celebrity playing themselves. I have to admit, it's not someone I recognized, because it's not a show that we even get here, let alone is it one that I would watch. Mary Hart, who was the host of Entertainment Tonight, which was like a kind of celebrity gossip program, or I don't know if you necessarily say
on
gossip.
the TV?
It's when it's on the TV,
yeah.
and Daphne's watching it, and it's like, oh, Julia Roberts has signed up for a new film where she's going to be playing a woman who falls in love with her therapist. And then Daphne's kind of like, and that's Mary Hart playing herself.
Yeah.
In a little thing, which is quite funny. Yeah, and she becomes obsessed. She winds up reading the file. She finds out where this woman, Heather, works. Mm-hmm. Her and Roz go down to the office.
Roz acting...
Roz is, convincing.
Inconspicuous, and just trying to... They confront the two of them and ask, like, what you here to do, who you here to see, and it's like, we're down from corporate, we're here to check up on your files. Oh, you didn't even tell them we were coming. Right, well, we're going to just go and wait in Heather's office and kind of storm through.
It's that, like, confidence, and you just properly just like blaze in, and it's funny seeing the two of them together getting up to hijinks.
It's not often we see it.
We don't see it an awful lot, and it's funny.
Roz is definitely more comfortable in the
absolutely. Daphne's clearly not comfortable. And then they wind up getting caught by Heather. She doesn't find out who they are, but she winds up figuring out that something's up and turfs them out.
Yeah.
And then we get the scene at the end with Daphne and Niles talking about it in Niles' office, saying, like, what you did is terrible, but what's even worse is that you don't trust me enough to just accept that I can't tell you what's going on, but you know that it's harmless.
Mm-hmm. I really like that scene.
It is a nice scene.
I think it's a great scene between Jane Leeves and David Hyde Pierce. I think they both play it very convincingly.
Yeah.
Of a couple who are going through something. Mm-hmm. And I love Niles' anger as well. It's not often we see him angry.
Yeah.
I love when we see a character get angry that doesn't usually. Mm-hmm. But the line where Niles says it's along the lines of, like, how could you possibly think that I would be looking at another woman? And Daphne says, like, well, because for 7 years I was the other woman.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn. With that one line, now we know where she's coming from.
You've got his ass,
Yeah, but it's like, what she's thinking. That's it's very succinct, but like it totally changes the perspective of the episode, I think. Mm-hmm. Like I said earlier, like, you either trust your partner or you don't, but then you hear that line, you're like, damn.
Maybe she is kind of justified in not trusting him a lot, or having a little bit of distrust, sprinkled in there. And then Niles, I find it really sweet the way that Niles explains. He goes over, it's like, when I was with Maris, when I was with Mel, I would be doing whatever in my life, and I would just find myself thinking about you, because he was head over heels in love. Oh, isn't it cute? And then he kind of and then he says, like, but now when I'm out and about, I'm in my sessions, whatever, I still find myself thinking about you.
Yeah.
And you realize that it's not just like he wasn't just in love with someone else because he was bored of his wife, which is something that definitely he was accused of, certainly in the first couple of years of the show. That he stayed with Maris and he just kind of fancied Daphne because she's attractive. It's like he's he is in love with her and always has been and always will be. It's nice.
It is nice. It ends
cute.
with them having a nice hug, and Niles. I'm still mad at you, by the way.
Yeah,
it's cute. It's nice. And as you say, it's a nice episode, kind of introducing the normality of their relationship. We get this very typical, almost sitcom scenario, but featuring two characters that have traditionally been. They've had this sort of asterisk above the relationship. It's always been, special episodes whenever we've visited them, or like last season when they've just gotten together and whatever else. So it's nice to see that the two of them together are just part of the show now, and it works. It works as just part of the show. It doesn't need to be anything special.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Yeah.
Missed out the cricket as well.
I missed the cricket, yeah. So there's a B plot with Martin's been out hunting, and he comes back and brings with him a cricket accidentally stowed away in his bag that takes up residence in Frasier's kitchen. And they need to have a stakeout with a gecko to capture it.
By a gecko to tie a little harness around it. And
yeah, I do find it very funny.
It's really sweet, actually. I really love the scene at the end when they're chatting in Martin and Frasier are chatting in the kitchen, and
they're arguing and bickering as they always do, and then decide that they're actually going to stay. Yeah, they realize that they're actually having a lot of fun.
Yeah,
sitting and just chatting with each other and talking about which women they would take to Love Island.
Yeah. There's a great line. That's absolutely exquisitely delivered by Kelsey Grammer when they're chatting about the lady at the bookstore.
Yeah,
I think it is, and they're both sort of talking about her, and then Martin turns around and says, she's got a belly piercing now. And Frasier turns around and he stares off into the distance. He's like, "That's fantastic." And it's just his delivery of it is so good. It's like you can tell he's actually thinking about that, and he does think that's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's really great.
Yeah, and then they catch the cricket. The gecko catches the cricket, and then they decide that they're going to just continue sitting and hanging out anyway, under the pretense of, but what if there's another cricket? And it's nice. It's sweet.
It is. It's really nice. They have a nice little time. We love the Martin Frasier kitchen chats. They're always some of the best scenes.
Yeah.
How do you think? How'd you rank this one?
It's another 3 for me.
Oh, that's strange, because it's another 4 from me.
Wild.
Not a 3 from me, it's a 4.
4 from you.
4 from more.
Yep.
No, it doesn't work.
It does not. And yet you try anyway. Yeah, the episode, I don't think it's especially, at least the Daphne Niles stuff, I don't think it lends itself to an awful lot of humor. I think I think Roz is very funny, but we only really get a little bit of that. And yeah, it's an interesting thing to explore, but I don't think it's very funny. I think a lot of when they're making jokes about it, they kind of fall flat. So it's really kind of averaged out for me, because it's really good and it's really sweet, and I like exploring that part of the relationship and stuff.
Yeah.
But then at the end, it's it's a comedy that's not particularly funny, and then the cricket kind of keeps it up as well. But yeah. Just kind of sits at a 3.
No, I wouldn't disagree with you. I don't think it's overly funny, especially the Daphne Niles side of things. But I think there's enough humour in there to keep it on the lighter side. As you say, the stuff with Roz when they go investigating, and then we've got the stuff with the cricket and Niles. And first of all, this is very clearly umber and not burnt sienna.
Umber, yeah.
So there's little sort of jabs here and there that bring it up, and just the general niceness of seeing the relationships between Martin and Frasier and Daphne and Niles is just that's nice. It's just nice.
It is nice.
So yeah, cool.
Right.
No guest callers.
No guest callers. So we had Mary Hart, as I mentioned, who appeared as herself. Heather Murphy was played by Michelle Stafford. who was in The Young and the Restless, is probably the thing that she is most well known for.
She's got quite a familiar face. I'm sure I've seen her elsewhere. I think, tell you what, I think she always reminds me of Samantha Frost.
Yeah.
She's got a very similar physique. She's wearing like the, what do you call it? Like suit and skirt, I guess. Yeah. Short blonde hair. She always looks very similar when I see her. Like, yeah.
They do. Yeah. So that's that.
That's that.
Nothing else to add on that one.
No. That's fantastic.
That's fantastic. On to the next episode. The return of Martin Crane.
Yep. Where's he been?
He's been... I don't know. I can't think of anything funny. I was trying to think of something funny. Please come up with something funny.
It's difficult. So if you don't prepare beforehand, it's tricky.
It's I know.
We are not improv comedians.
I know. We should practice. We should practice the improv and then get, be able to actually keep it up.
Yeah.
Anyway, the return of Martin Crane. So Martin is going back to work.
Yep.
3 nights a week, as he explains. He's going back to work as a security guard, which is something that lends itself to a few plot lines in a few episodes from now on. Like the fact that he's now working does come back to it. I suppose they were maybe just sort of running out of things for Martin to be up to, really.
I think it's probably a bit of both. Like there is some characterization to it, but also in the writer's room, there's probably a bit of what can we do to kind of get things going with Martin again, you know? But equally, I think it makes sense within his character. Like he is an older man. He is sitting around the house all day, but he has also been receiving physical therapy for the last 8 years.
Yeah.
So he always enjoyed working as a cop. So it makes total sense that he would want to go back. Even if it's just part-time, it makes total sense, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what he does.
Yeah. So Frasier's throwing a little congratulations party. Frasier and Roz and Niles and Daphne are getting together with some cake and some champagne or whatever to toast him when he goes off to work. And Niles sits him down and explains that he's worried that it might bring back some bad memories because the last time he worked was the day that he got shot. And that's pretty much exactly what happens. The rest of the episode is intercut between, at the party, everyone's bickering because no one can figure out who's going to take Eddie out for a walk while Martin's working. And Martin's having these flashbacks to the day that he was shot and like what his life was, what his working life was like, and also what his family life was like. At this point, Hester's died. He's by himself. Frasier's not coming home for Thanksgiving. Niles is with Maris, and Martin and Maris do not get along. So he's feeling very isolated. He's just bought himself a fish called Eddie, because he says he's not a dog person. And I really like the flashbacks. He's with his partner Frank, who we have seen since then in like the poker games.
Presumably not the same Frank.
I assumed. Well, actually, yeah.
They're very.
I guess it can't have been because they are different. I assumed that it must have been the same person, but they do look very different when you think that it only will have been 3 or 4 years between.
Yeah, I mean,
these flashbacks and
it might be that was the intention. Yeah. I always figured it wasn't. I figured it was just another.
Yeah.
Other Frank was just part of the precinct, and this was his partner Frank.
Yeah.
But I guess I never really gave it that much thought, so it could go either way.
I assumed that they were the same person, but now that you mention it, it really doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, he's chatting with his partner Frank, who's going through his own things. He's getting court-ordered therapy. He's getting back in touch with his kids. He's going through a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like it. I like that we get
it's really good,
flashbacks.
We spoke about, we had our little bonus episode chat on spin-offs and everything, and it's very much the vibe that I was thinking in my head of, a Martin Crane PD spin-off,
Yeah.
you know. That's PI. That's what I was thinking. But then that's Magnum PI. No, PI is Private Investigator.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
right? It's very much that vibe of this sort of sincere look at his life after his wife has died and exploring what it was like on the force and heading towards retirement. But it is intercut with like little bits of humor as well. Like you've got Niles coming by to complain that Martin had Maris's car towed.
Yeah.
Things like that are very funny. But then we have, you know, the scene where he's in the hospital after having been shot. Which again there's nothing funny about that. Like,
Yeah.
they try and crack little jokes and you're kind of like,
Yeah.
it's not. It's you acknowledge that it is, you know, it is a serious scene.
Yeah. There is a line that I think is really, I think it's probably a part of Martin kind of hardening and going into the way that he is when we first see him in the pilot, where he's really grouchy and he's really miserable and he's kind of like he's very antagonistic, quite openly antagonistic towards Frasier and Niles. When he's in the bed and Niles kind of says like, "Oh, I knew something like this was going to happen. I'll never understand how you can go out and take risks like this." And then Martin just says like, "Yeah, I'll bet you won't ever understand that."
Yeah.
And it's like like you can see that Niles feels very hurt by it, but also that he's not wrong.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even the build up to that scene, like him and Frank chatting in the car, and they're talking about, oh, maybe I'll just give Frasier a phone call. You know, maybe I'll just give him a call at the blue. I think I'd like that. I think he'd like that, and reconnect. And then that scene ends with them parking the car and him walking into the corner shop, the convenience store. And it's very... It doesn't show anything, but it's very, like, almost hard to watch.
I feel like...
Because you know what's coming for him.
Every time
the character.
Every time I watch it, I'm expecting, like, to hear a gunshot.
Yeah.
I always kind of forget that they don't play, like, a gunshot.
Yeah.
When he goes in. Yeah.
I think honestly that's one of the most impressive scenes of the show.
Yeah.
Is that through nothing but context clues, you can feel that way about the character and about the scene, showing absolutely nothing. You know exactly what's happened. You know exactly how horrible it is. And through the follow-up scene, you're kind of reinforced in that, sort of reinforced in those feelings, I guess. Yeah. So it's all the flashback scenes are really, really
they do work well.
Powerful.
Yeah,
they work really well.
In fact, the one thing that I think lets the episode down is that we don't just get more of it. I think we should have had more time on the flashbacks, and less time on this present day. Like, I know that it's going to be hard to strike that balance. You couldn't just do a whole episode that's like, oh, the day that Martin got shot. I'm going
to disagree.
Yeah.
Respectfully. No, I think it works really well. I think it balances really well because you get this really interesting contrast between Martin's life then, Martin's life now. And there is this kind of concept of less is more.
Yeah.
With the flashback scenes. So the fact that we've got this sort of not half-hearted, but it's a very light plot. Eddie needs walked, and they're arguing about who needs to walk him.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of the background noise to this bigger thing, and this bigger thing is being shown sort of piecemeal. It's very few scenes to actually build this bigger picture. And I think that works really well. I think it contrasts really well because when you're not watching the scenes with Martin, you kind of you want to be and you want more of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you had more of it, you would be more involved in the scenes in the past and maybe not have a full appreciation of them.
No, that's true. That's true.
Maybe that's me. I love when filmmakers, when showrunners, whatever, I love when they do things against the grain. I love when they're ballsy enough to do a scene like that, to do a scene about a cop getting shot and not show the shooting, you know, or to show a scene about everyone's favourite sitcom dad lying in a hospital bed after having been shot. I love when they do stuff like that. I love when it makes you like actually feel for the characters.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's fine. If you want more, that's fine. That's all good.
I just I think personally I just think we don't get enough of it. But I do understand what you're saying, and like I say, like we definitely couldn't have too much.
Yeah, I think a full episode.
I think there's definitely the risk there of there being too much. So I can understand why they didn't do more. The
one thing I will concede though is that I think the stuff in the background with Eddie and going for a walk and stuff could maybe be a little bit funnier.
Yeah. They just they're just arguing and they're just...
It's not bad. It's not unfunny.
Yeah.
It's just, I think they could have maybe, done a little bit more with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the Return of Martin Crane.
Return of Martin Crane. So what would you rank it?
Unsurprisingly, give it another 4.
Give it another 4. I gave it a 4 as well, actually.
Did you give it a 4?
I gave this one a 4.
Good.
Yeah, I think it's really solid. I think it's very funny. My highlight for the disc, which I will get to later, is from this episode.
Good.
And I think it's really it's great. There's something really funny. Maybe not intentionally funny, but there is something really funny about seeing David Hyde Pierce 9 years into the role wearing a wig to try and make him look like he's younger than he was at the pilot.
Yeah.
Which is very funny.
It is. Yeah. No, yeah.
And that cracks me up.
Yeah. No, it is a really good episode, and it's I think definitely if they lent too hard on these style of like very special episodes about specific characters, mostly Martin, to be honest, we had A Day in May just one disc ago.
Yeah.
If they go too hard on them, they kind of lose their edge a little. But I think this one does it a lot better. I think it does a lot better than A Day in May.
Yeah.
Because it balances the humor better.
Mm-hmm.
Especially even in the flashbacks and stuff, we get little jokes in amongst the seriousness. So, yeah. We want more but less at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a difficult line to kind of balance.
It is.
Yeah. Guest stars maybe on this one?
There is a guest star in this one.
There is
a guest call right at the beginning. So Frasier, right before he goes away, he's doing his radio show as always. We get a call from Tom, who's having cold feet about his wedding. He's worried that he's that the person he's marrying isn't right for him, and Frasier says like, oh well, you need to have a talk with her, you need to figure out if it's what you both want. It's a very serious commitment that you're getting into. And that's when you hear the music in the background, the wedding march, and you realize that it's like, oh, he's getting married like now, and he goes away to break the bad news to his fiance, and hangs up. And yeah, it's quite funny. I think the issue there is definitely, I think it's on both of them a little bit, both on Tom and on Frasier, that he really needs to have said, I'm getting married this afternoon, and I'm panicking. Or when he says, I'm getting married and I'm panicking a bit, Frasier should have said, when are you getting married? Have you set a date yet? And that, anyway. Tom is voiced by Anthony Edwards, who was in ER. He was in Top Gun. He was in something that I'm going to come back to a little bit later on. He was in Thunderbirds, the movie Thunderbirds.
Thunderbirds Argo.
The live action one. Yes, maybe. The one from like 2003.
It's called Thunderbirds Argo, is it not?
I think it was just called Thunderbirds.
Maybe it was.
He played Brains
Oh,
with the glasses and the
Henry Hiram. What's his name again?
Hiram Hackenbacker.
Hiram Hackenbacker. Yeah, that's the one.
Is that his name?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
I'm curious as to how you're going to tie Thunderbirds into a later conversation.
Yeah, you should be.
I'm excited to find out.
Stay tuned. Don't turn off this channel.
Yeah. Right. You want to take us through Love Stinks?
Yeah, we're going to move on to the next one. Right, so Love Stinks. Yeah, Roz is in a new relationship.
She sure is.
With a lovely, I think, very handsome man called Roger.
Yeah.
Pretty striking looking man. Who also seems very nice. They clearly get along very well. I mean, we don't see this right at the beginning.
No.
But they clearly get along very well, as we find out later on.
Very good with Alice as well.
Very good with Alice, which is, of course, going to be important when you're a mother with a, 4 or 5 year old? No, not even that. 3 or 4
year old.
3 or 4?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she's having a little bit of trepidation because Roger is a garbage man.
Yep.
A bin man, a dustman, a refuse collector, whatever you want to call him. And yeah, it's kind of exploring the idea of is she going to be uncomfortable being in a relationship with a man who has a job that she kind of, not intentionally, but she just has a bit of bias towards, that she sort of looks down on as below her.
Yeah.
And it, causes a bit of problems. Are they gonna, is she gonna have to break up with him? In the end, she does, and then gets back with him.
Regrets her decision, yeah.
At the end. And I think it's quite sweet. I think it's, of all of the Roz's romance stories, I think this is probably...
I think it's the best.
It's probably the best.
I think it's the best. I think Roger is the best fit for her.
Yeah, definitely.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I think it's a really great episode and explores these, as you say, these kind of biases.
Yeah.
Something that we've had a lot of throughout Frasier.
Mm-hmm.
We've had Frasier and Niles being very elitist towards a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting to see that from Roz's perspective, someone who Frasier and Niles have looked down on at times.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just interesting to see it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's disrespectful or anything towards folk who work in refuse collection or whatever the official term is. I think it's played very well, and it's very much like, Roz is kind of assuming that others will look down on it and trying to get ahead of that.
Yeah.
But that comes out as she's looking down on it.
She's ashamed.
Yeah.
And she's kind of trying to act like... I mean, right at the beginning, she's clearly hesitant to tell Frasier and Niles about it. And that makes a bit more sense because, like you say, they're complete snobs.
Yeah.
But then you realize as it goes on that she's not telling anybody because she's ashamed.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it's not about her wanting to protect Roger from other people. It's just about her.
Yeah.
That's what you've just said. Sorry, I'm just rewording what you've just
fine.
said. But anyway, yeah.
Glad we agree.
Yes, we do agree. Yeah. And I think it works well. It's a little bit inconsistent, I think, with Roz and how she's been before. I think there have been plenty of guys that she's dated before that if she's going to look down on Roger, she would probably be looking down on them as well. Maybe not getting involved in serious relationships with them.
I think that's
probably the line.
I think that's where I see a distinction in this episode.
Yeah.
Is that they've been out on a few dates, they're getting quite serious. And that's the difference between the sort of one-off dates that she's gone on.
That's true. Yeah, that's not something I really thought about when watching it, but it does make more sense when you think about it, is that she would obviously be a bit more scared about getting serious with someone that she looked down on rather than just having a fling with him.
Yeah. Poor Roger.
Yeah, I know. But hey, they wind up, well, they get back together at the end of the episode.
She goes for a ride on his garbage truck.
On the garbage truck. Yeah. And then we've also got a kind of which does tie into it, I think. Really, we've got a B plot with Frasier.
Yeah,
Frasier's gotten someone at his work has written a limerick about him on a stall in the men's room, making fun of him for being a snob.
Yeah,
and Frasier has taken that to heart and is very upset that people think he's a snob. So he decides to throw a party for everyone to convince them that he's not a snob. And then he acts incredibly snobby to everybody at all times. And then he decides, as soon as everyone likes him, decides that he doesn't actually care if anyone likes him, and he wants people to stop annoying him. And and then he's just incredibly rude to people who are inviting him out. They're inviting him out to go and watch the boxing match. And he's kind of like, I don't like boxing. I like Edwardian revenge dramas. And it's like, mate, this is why everyone hates you.
Just go to the pub, man.
This
Just go to the
why
pub,
everyone hates
have
you.
a beer, and watch the boxing.
Like, I don't like sports. I'm not a sports guy. I spent my this Saturday just passed, sitting in the pub watching the football.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Because my girlfriend's stepdad invited me out, and I couldn't exactly say no. But well, I suppose I could have said no.
I'm still impressed.
But
you made it through a full afternoon of sports.
I did. I figured out what it is that makes other people engaged in sports, because I've never gotten this before. Like, my whole life, people talk about football. I've never understood the appeal of football. I've never gotten it. I finally figured out what it is that makes football interesting. Put money on it.
Yeah.
100%. Honestly, I was just like, who's playing in the big match? Stick a $5 on one of the teams at random. And then,
It makes it very exciting.
It does make it a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. Although I did accidentally put a $5 on, it was Everton Spurs, and I put a $5 on Everton.
Oh, you idiot.
And well, for one thing, they lost 2-0, and the way that everyone reacted when I told them I had done that makes me think that, like, clearly that was the wrong choice, because I don't know anything about football. But also the guy sitting next to me, unbeknownst to me, because I don't know what football strips look like, the guy sitting next to me was a Spurs supporter wearing a Spurs strip, which I thought was fine. Anyway, after a tangent about me being a snob and still going and watching football, Frasier should have just gone and done that and watched the boxing with his friends and just shut up for a minute.
But it's interesting to see the different, like, levels of snobbishness, I suppose. You know, we've got Frasier Niles that we're so used to seeing that when we finally see it coming from someone else, it's sort of a renewed... It's not just a different perspective, it's a renewed perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we've become so accustomed to that attitude from our main cast.
Yeah.
It's not shocking. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, here we are again.
Yeah.
The cycle continues.
It absolutely does
with Roz.
Yeah. So what do you think? Did you enjoy the episode?
I do enjoy the episode, actually. Yeah, I think it's very good. I give it another 4.
Give it a 4? Well.
Give it another 4. I think, I really like it. I like Roger. I think he's a really great guest star. I think he works really well with Roz. I think he bounces off her and Alice well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's someone you could easily see becoming a recurring character.
Yeah.
I think the way that he portrays being a garbage man is very respectful. The way he explains it, kind of says like, oh, I work for the city, a good pension, good hours, get to go home at night. Like it's very much like he's so right. Like, why would you look down on someone who works a job like that? I have nothing but respect for your bin men. Bins gotta get collected.
Absolutely.
You know who always smiles at their job? You know when you walk past the bin men collecting the bins in the morning, you know who always says hi and have a good day? It's always those guys. They always got a smile on their face.
Yeah.
You know who doesn't have a smile on their face?
Cops.
Lawyers. Okay. Oh. Yeah, cops.
Cops.
Yeah, cops is...
There's a I'm not really a big fan of Seinfeld, mostly because everyone keeps comparing it to Frasier, and I automatically I'm going to assume that Frasier's better. But there's a really funny Seinfeld joke where they're talking about how they think that cops and garbage men should be one thing.
Right.
Because you always see cops standing around doing nothing. Pick up a broom. Which is very funny.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yes. I, much like you, am being very consistent in this disc, and I gave it a 3. I think it's all right. I think Frasier being weird about the fact that he's a snob and an elitist is funny in that it lends to a couple of jokes, but also not especially interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit out of character as well, because he is usually so quick to just be a snob and not care if anyone thinks poorly of him for it.
In some cases, yeah, I think it may be because it's not his employees, his colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
He has this different kind of attitude towards it.
Yeah.
He wants people to like him. He wants people to get on with him.
That is something that we have definitely seen before, is that he
Yeah.
can't handle people not liking him.
Yeah. The criticisms and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
in the end, it's not bad. It's also not great. It's another 3. This is a very 3 heavy disc for me.
Got a very 4 heavy disc.
Yeah.
Shall we finish off?
Yes. Last one.
3/4 heavy disc.
Yeah. So the last episode on this disc, actually very relevant for the time of year coming.
It is. That's true.
This episode's going to be coming out. Is Roomful of Heroes.
Yeah.
Which is the, I guess, second of 2 Halloween episodes. We only really have 2 Halloween episodes, don't we?
Yep.
Frasier's hosting a Halloween party, specifically themed around everyone coming dressed as their own personal heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And Frasier's so obsessed with everyone else playing his game that he can't handle them having fun doing anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And he just completely tanks the evening because of that.
Yeah, derails it completely.
Yeah. So he has this game where everyone's dressed as their heroes, and he wants them to answer questions as if they were their heroes, which I guess sounds kind of fun. If you like, it has the potential to be fun.
I think the lack of fun comes from the lack of people.
Yeah.
Attending the party, to be honest. Because, I think it's maybe not a game you would play all night.
No.
And you'd probably need to get a few beers in first.
Oh, absolutely.
But it does sound pretty fun, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. The idea of actually just staying in character when you show up to a Halloween party also sounds fun, depending on the person you're dressed as, I suppose. But yeah, and then the questions that Frasier is asking are stupid. He's asking them questions about the Human Genome Project, and everyone's just trying to have fun. And then he kind of goes on this big tangent where he's pretending to be Sigmund Freud, talking about how much he loves his mother. And it's like, okay, right, come on.
He takes it like that little bit too seriously.
He takes it way too seriously.
There's always someone. There's always someone
mm-hmm.
that takes these kind of games just that little bit too far, that makes everyone else uncomfortable and not want to play anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we have the whole other kind of second half of this is that Niles is accused by Frasier of ruining the party because he has come dressed as Martin.
He has.
He thinks Martin as his personal hero, which is sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, I always assumed that he's not being, he's being genuine about it, right?
Yeah. I mean,
we don't really have any reason to believe that he's just like trying to suck up to his dad.
I mean, there's definitely no reason for him to believe he's doing it to derail the party.
Yeah.
I think he's maybe not doing it as like, oh, dad is my absolute number one hero, but it's a sweet thing to do. And if you had that kind of idea, you would roll with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is, as you say, it's a sweet thing.
But yeah, so Frasier gets very upset and then leaves and then comes back again, and there's a whole other thing we'll get to in a minute, when the whole thing with the children going around Elliott Bay Towers.
Yeah.
But Frasier leaves and comes back, and then they continue playing the game, and Niles, having had quite a bit to drink, taking on Martin's persona, kind of goes on a bit of a rant about how he feels like his children are disappointments, or I guess, how do I word it? Niles thinks that Martin thinks that they are disappointments.
Yes.
And, you know, in saying that, especially in his quite drunken state, really offends Martin, because Martin says, like, you know, I've never said that, and I'm very proud of you, and whatever. And it's a bit of a,
it's a very tense scene.
It is very tense. Martin's clearly very offended, and Niles is portraying Martin as being very judgmental and very rude and very cruel and heartless. But at the end, I don't think he's that unjustified in feeling like that, in thinking that Martin would be disappointed in them. He makes comments about, like, oh, my kids never make an effort to go and see baseball games with me, and Martin kind of tries to object, but it's like, well, that's true.
It is.
The only time that they've gone is under pretty much false pretenses. They've never. There are 2 times we've seen them go to sports games together, and it's never been just because they want to go and spend time with him and do something that he enjoys. And I think the way that Martin acts, or especially like the way he did early on in the show, maybe not so much the past couple of years.
Yeah, definitely the first couple of seasons. I
think there's plenty of reason to believe that he wouldn't say something like that.
No,
because he's not a cruel and heartless person.
No,
but it's not unreasonable to think that he would think that, especially that Niles would have his doubts, and that Niles would maybe feel like Martin is disappointed in him, whether he is or not.
Yeah.
But there you go.
I think it's a really upsetting scene, to be honest. I think it goes a bit beyond just being a bit intense. Like, it's actually quite upsetting to watch, because Niles gets very drunk, and the way that he goes off on his rant, and it kind of devolves into the question out of the bowl is, what's your biggest disappointment? And you answer that in character, and Martin, as Joe DiMaggio, says something like never hitting a home run? Is that what he says?
I can't remember.
He starts it off, and then Niles goes, or maybe Niles goes first, and I'm imagining that. I can't remember. Whatever. Anyway, Niles goes and answering it as Martin, and says like, it's Niles that says that.
Niles says he
never got to see.
He never got to take his kids to see Joe DiMaggio play baseball.
Yeah, it's something like that. Never got to see him hit a home run or whatever it is. And then he starts thinking, and then he sort of snowballs, and he's like, oh, well, my kids were never interested in baseball. And it's like, oh, well, then, I suppose if I ever had to pick my 2 biggest disappointments, and then Martin cuts him off very short and says, like, no, you will not put those words in my mouth.
Yeah.
And it's very like, oh man, poor Martin. He's actually like really offended by that. And Niles has definitely taken it too far. So it's really, it's upsetting to see Niles like that.
Yeah.
Even if he is drunk and it is maybe semi-excusable.
Yeah.
It's still, watching it is like, oh, we're used to Niles being the happy-go-lucky comedic relief, not the drunken jackass offending everyone,
Yeah.
Then again, the previous Halloween episode, he gets drunk in a bar.
What is it with Niles and Halloween? Getting plastered all the time.
I thought of that, actually. Yeah, it's the previous episode that he...
That's funny.
gets drunk as well. He had good in his heart in the previous episode, at least.
Well, yeah, kind of. I think he was just hard up for Daphne, as always.
Heureux.
Oh, man.
Oh, it's such a good episode. This episode's good as well.
This episode is pretty good as well.
I like it. Yeah, the stuff with the kids in the building.
The stuff with the kids. Old Man Crane. Daphne and Martin have informed Frasier that the kids don't want to come to the apartment because of Old Man Crane, who Frasier at first thinks is Martin, and then finds out that it's actually him. Because, and then we find out why. It's because Martin has been going around scaring all of the children by telling them that he eats their brains.
Old Man Crane, Old Man Crane, make him mad and he'll eat your brain.
Old Man Crane.
Yeah. And then we get this great the final scene in the episode after Martin's gone to bed offended and Niles is wanting to get his costume off. Frasier takes, it's like an ice cream scoop or something.
Like a fork, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know, something
to get the wig, Martin's wig, unstuck from Niles, and then the door opens to the kids, and they see this, like as he's Frasier peeling the scalp off Niles.
Yeah,
they scream and run away.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I like how it ties together.
Yeah, and we've got a couple of one kid who's fairly well known as a child actor.
Yes.
Stephen Anthony Lawrence, who appears again later on, and presumably playing a different character. I guess they don't explicitly say it, but you could be the same character.
I guess, yeah.
But also pretty well known. He was Beans in Even Stevens.
Love that show.
Yeah. So fairly well known there.
He was in a lot of like sort of kids sitcoms in the 90s.
Like Disney.
Yeah, Disney
Channel
era
stuff.
Yeah. He was in a lot of stuff there.
Which admittedly I've not seen an awful lot of beyond Even Stevens.
Here and there I would stick it on. I can't think of other examples, but yeah.
But there's also another kid who Frasier runs into. Having stormed out of the party, he runs into another kid who's having a bit of a falling out with his brother. And they kind of consoles him and then realizes that he's actually way more upset about what's happened with Niles than the kid was with his brother and whatever. But the kid is played by Soren Fulton, who, and this is where I'm going to be coming back to Thunderbirds.
Okay.
He's the one that plays, presumably an original character from the film, because I don't think he was in the original TV series, Fermat, who is Brain's son.
Brain's really?
Son. Yeah. So the son of the character played by... what's his name? Anthony Edwards, who appeared earlier in this disc.
How about that?
Yeah. That's kind of funny, right?
How about that? It's a bit funny, actually. That's a weird tie-in. The same disc, playing father and son.
In a film like...
5 years later. Actually, not even 5 years later.
5 years. It was like
2003?
2003?
2003, 2004, yeah. So what, a couple of years later?
2 or 3 years? Yeah.
They would play
this
father and
was...
son. How about that?
Yeah, this... Well, I can't remember exactly which episode it is on this disc, but this is the last time that David Angel appeared in the credits,
right?
As an executive producer. I think he's still listed it because he was one of the creators of the show, but David Angel, who sadly passed away. On 9/11, so that would have been like end of season 8. Because I can never remember when it is in the show, but they do have a in memory of. I think it's the end of season 8.
Is it? I don't remember, to be honest.
It might actually be the end of it might be the end of Don Juan in Hell.
Possibly. We need to go back and check.
Yeah. So, but it was around here, and it was one of these episodes in this disc was the last time that his name was listed as like an executive producer. Which
must be hard. I mean, obviously he's not one of the main cast members, but he was executive producer for 8 years.
Yeah,
he was involved in every single episode.
The showrunner. He was in it the whole time, and to lose one of the 3 creators of the show, must have been a hit. Everyone must have been pretty upset about that.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
It's a shame.
Yeah. There you go. Okay, incredibly sad thing to end on. So we'll dive straight into the highlights.
Will we?
Yes.
Before giving a rating for this episode?
Oh, we haven't given a rating for the episode yet.
See, this is why I normally do it.
This is why you normally do it. You're much better at this than I am.
No, you've done a great job considering that I've lost all my notes.
Yeah.
You did very well.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, Roomful of Heroes. So what would you rank? What would you give Roomful of Heroes?
Unsurprisingly,
another 4.
I give it another 4.
Another 4. Okay. Yeah.
A disc full of 4s. Room full of 4s.
Room full of heroes. Disc full of 4s.
No, it's good fun. I like when we get costume episodes. I know it's a really minor and silly thing to enjoy about sitcoms, but I really love seeing the main cast dressed up in things.
Yeah.
I think it's just funny. There's just something really like aesthetically entertaining about seeing the main cast in different styles of clothes, different costumes and stuff.
Yeah.
So we've got like Daphne's dressed up as Elton John, and Roz dressed up as Wonder Woman. And then Sigmund Freud, Martin, and Joe DiMaggio already mentioned. It's all...
What is it that Niall says as he's getting drunk when Roz is explaining why she respects Wonder Woman so much, and Niall yells out like, "And talk about Hooters."
Oh yeah. So Martin says, "Hey, I keep those thoughts to myself."
It's so stupid.
No, it's just really fun to see them in that, and I like these little sort of self-contained party episodes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I don't like watching the scene where Niall starts to call out Martin and stuff, but it is well done, and I can appreciate that it is well done. So it's got everything I like in an episode. It's almost a bottle episode as well, not quite, because Frasier goes downstairs, but it's just a recipe full of things that I enjoy. Mm-hmm. So what about you?
So I gave it a 3.
Another 3.
I gave it another 3. We're being very consistent with the rankings in this episode. It's unfortunately just another one that kind of comes in the middle. Like, I think it's got a lot of good things going for it and also a lot of bad things. I find the way that Frasier acts just ruining everyone's fun, as always. I always find so frustrating. I think at this point in the show, I'm just getting sick of it. Yeah. Like, more than just, I find it a bit annoying, but I can sort of forgive it and whatever. It's just what the character's like. At this point in the show, I'm like, oh my God, shut up. Get on with it. Yeah. Just give us a Daphne Niles plot. Like, at this point, they can do it. At this point, they can just do a Daphne Niles plot or a Martin plot or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we don't have to have Frasier ruining an episode. Can we just...
Yeah.
Or just drop the pretense and just give us a Frasier episode that's not about him ruining a dinner party. You know?
There is also that, yeah.
There is also that. So, yeah, it's a 3. It's got a lot of good things, but also that does kind of bring it back down a bit.
Mm-hmm. That's a shame. I think I think this disc has got some pretty solid episodes on it. Mm-hmm. I'm sad that you didn't give it more 4s, but well, it's fine. Now do you want to do highlights?
Now highlights. Do you want to go first for highlights? Do you have something in mind?
I don't know if I do actually have anything specific in mind. I've already said the 2 lines that I love the most. The line from Kirby with Roz saying, "I noticed you got your hand on my ass." I love that line and just how it plays out. And I love Frasier's "That's fantastic" line as well. Is really great. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I can think of one specific instance. I at the sake of being a cliche and picking another Martin moment, I'd maybe have to say just the scene with him and Frank in the car, the flashback with him and Frank in the car, leading up to him walking into the convenience store. Yeah, I think it's really well done. And just, as I said before, like entirely through like context clues and from what we know about Martin's situation and about the shooting, we understand so much more than what we're shown. And I just really love when a show can pull that off. I love that when they don't need to show us everything. Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna give that to my highlight. Make it more serious this week. Okay. What about you?
Well, I'm gonna go for a funny one, but from the same episode.
Okay.
So we get halfway through, the Return of Martin Crane. What's it called? Yeah, the Return of Martin Crane. There's a flashback with Martin and Frank sitting in, I guess, a bar.
Yeah.
A restaurant, whatever. They're having their lunch.
Yeah.
I guess. And Niles comes in and he's upset at Martin because Martin's booted Maris's car. And they're kind of having a bit of an argument about like, oh yeah, I booted someone's car. I didn't realize that was Maris's. And it's like, oh, well, the license plate says Maris. And Niles is obviously very upset, and Martin says like, "Oh well, it's a very common name. I mean, loads of people are called Maris, isn't that right, Frank?" And Frank says, "Yeah, my mother's name is Maris." And then Niles obviously goes to say something to Frank, and kind of like stumbles, and then just squints at him. He just goes, and he just glares at him with his like, You know, yeah. It's very funny. And I think it's just the delivery of that. It's not even a line. It's just that physical acting from David Hyde Pierce.
There's so few actors that can pull off mannerisms like that. Mm-hmm. And David Hyde Pierce is just
cracks it.
One of the best. Absolutely.
Knocks it out of the park. Yeah, that line. Actually, there's a lot in that scene that I think is really funny.
Is very good.
He says something, you know, Niles says like, "Oh, I can't believe you booted her." And then Martin says, like, I wouldn't be upset if you booted her. And then high fives Frank under the table.
It was after Niles leaves and he's speaking to Frank and he's like, I can't believe you booted your daughter-in-law's car. Mm-hmm. And he says, that wasn't the hard part. The hard part was moving the hydrant in front of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole scene is very good. And his relationship with Frank is nice to see. It's good to see him with other cops. In his element.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good episode all around. Highest ranked of the disc.
Yep.
Hopefully not the highest ranked of the whole series, though. I'm hoping we get some higher than that.
Actually, there is one. I mean, now that we're kicking off season 9, I can say that I'm very excited because we do have one episode, probably my favorite guest star across the whole show, appears in an episode in season 9.
I wonder if I can guess.
Absolutely. I just think it's I don't even know if I would necessarily give the episode a 5. No, I probably would. But it's just the fact that the guest star is so fantastic.
Oh, I know who you're thinking. Yeah, I know who you're thinking of. Tell you what, you give that a 5.
Very excited.
That might be our first 5 versus 1.
Oh, do you really hate that episode?
I despise it.
If it's the one we're thinking of, man.
That could be interesting.
That could be interesting because that's almost certainly going to be a 5 for me. Okay, right. Stay tuned.
I don't know if that's next week or the week after.
I think I want to say it's disc 3.
Disc 3, okay.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
Rivalry.
Very exciting.
Yes. Well, we're well into season 9 now. We've got only a handful of episodes left, so spread the word. Tell your friends. Mm-hmm. Let us know what you think of the series. If you're enjoying it, if you want us to do more, if you want us to do something different. Should we do Seinfeld next? No, we're not going to do Seinfeld. We're not doing Seinfeld. But no, let us hear from you. We love when you guys do interact with us and tell us what you think and share your funny memes and everything are very good. Mm-hmm. So
we love the memes.
Please do keep in touch.
Yeah.
Yes. And with that, we will we'll say goodbye. Do you want to say goodbye? You've led this episode.
Do you want me to? Oh God! What order do you do it in?
Let's see if you can get it right.
Have a good day, good mental health, and thank you for listening.
Hey, there we go.
I've managed to do this whole episode with that picture of Drake staring at me.
Yeah,
and it's very upsetting, and I don't like it.
I'm gonna pick a better one for next week.
Oh God.
This has been a Happy Brothers podcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HappyBrosPod.
All opinions are our own, and as always, special thanks to Leah O'Donnell for the show's artwork.